I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is it going to get hotter in here? That's funny. I think we'll go around. You make us all start over this meeting.
At this time, we'll have an open time. Any person, and I believe two people have asked to speak at this time. Kristen, everyone. Scott, you're looking for it, please. Okay, I'm gonna set the timer for 3 minutes.
Just two things this evening, and if you don't mind, I'd like to direct the comments towards our newest member of the board, Mr. Zavadano. The Upper Valley Community Committee would like to invite you to come down some Thursday night to discuss your insights into the finances of the district, ask you some questions and whatnot, get to know you better, so we can express some of our concerns and findings over time. I think you'll find that Director Fuss and Dwight have been there, and we don't bite. So we extend that invitation and look forward to having you come down some evening. Number two would be, I understand the Finance Committee's meeting scheduled for tomorrow night has been postponed. Is it set for next Tuesday or not?
Yes.
We know. Yes, that's in, can I put it in writing, in stone?
Works for me.
Okay, good. Is it possible on the district's website that meetings like this that have short notice, can they be put on the home page somewhere? I noticed by looking at the home page, there's still some old information, and we might be able to free up some space and maybe do a heading of upcoming meetings or something like that. A suggestion, a request, if possible. That's all I have at this time.
I'm proud of you. You beat the clock.
Oh,
Who is the next person?
I'm saving it for later.
I submitted the letter that was put early enough for the agenda and was told that the board has decided not to address it or put it on the agenda. So I made another copy. This has multiple signatures. It's the same letter. And we want to ask for the chairman of the board to step down. We really feel that some of the mess that we're in now is due to poor leadership of the board, and we would really ask the board to address it instead of just saying, no, we're not going to look into it, or not even give a chance to address it. And so I'd like to give this to you, Kristen, because it has additional signatures of people.
Are you asking for her to step down from the board or as chairperson?
As chairperson from the board. That's all I'm asking, is step down for chair, but we need somebody who will give us good leadership.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll open it up for consent agenda. The following.
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
I was going to say, I'd like to pull the financial statements from the consent agenda. I've got a couple of questions on some of the entries in the financial statement.
Okay.
Should I
I
continue?
I move to pull that from the consent agenda.
Okay. I would second it.
Yeah.
I believe it. I believe it. that can do it, but, yes.
I just have a few questions on some of the items in this. I'm trying to get a grip on this, and we're hopefully getting closer. And I'm trying to get an idea of some of the entries on the financial statement. In terms of, on page 3 of the statement, the taxes general, I noticed we haven't gotten any yet, but when does that typically come into our district, the taxes from the tax collector?
So just this last week, or end of last week, we received $17,000 from
Oh, okay, so it's
Jackson
just,
County.
all right. Okay. The next one down the line there is, it says CVP restoration revenue. And my question is, does that revenue, that $814,000, does that include both the M&I and the ag restoration? The ag restoration of $11 and the,
If it's not broken out, then it would.
it's not broken, it doesn't seem to be broken out. I was just wondering if it contains, it contains both of those.
I would guess that it just includes the domestic, because
There's no ag allocation.
Well, there was some ag. We had some ag during, in the first part of the year.
There was no,
But in the future, is it possible to break out the restoration ag and, domestic?
that's a good idea.
It depends on whether or not the software has enough capability to be able to do that, I suppose. And then, under the merchant account, there's $8,291.88. None was budgeted. I assume that comes out of, the merchant account and has been put into, use during this month to pay for items that needed to be paid for.
Yeah,
That's
so it'll, depending on the general account, it will get transferred to the.
It got transferred over, and that 8,000, so the 8,000 came out of the merchant account, whatever was in the merchant account, and it's over here somewhere. And then was put into this account in order to pay for ongoing expenses. Okay.
I'm assuming that's some sort of error to not have a budgeted.
Yeah, there's no budget, there's not amount budgeted for that, and I'm kind of curious about that.
I believe the merchant account should be a clearing account.
It's a what?
It's a clearing account. If everything ran smoothly, it would always be zero anyway.
Well, with the budget, and even the budget, yeah.
Yeah, because you don't hold money in that account.
That's true.
Okay.
And then down under water purchase, the 48,915, that's the total, and, it's been under expenditures. That's the total for M&I and ag. Is that right?
Which page are we on?
We're on page, again, page 3 of, it's under expenditures. And you've got total funds available, and then right under that expenditures, and source of supply, water purchase, 48,915, and I assume that would be both M&I and domestic. See?
Page 2.
Page 2. And then also,
That needs to get cleared up, right, it's supposed to be in my end.
yeah, I think it needs to be broken out.
That's been an ongoing request for
Right.
6 months, maybe?
Yeah, and I guess it has to do with the software, whether or not the software has enough line items to be able to do that.
The
that is $9,869. I assume that includes both the ag and the M&I. And those are the other two that really should be broken out. So you have the revenue coming in and then the expenditures going out. And then going on to page 3, under utilities, I see that for the filter plant, the utilities for the year-to-date is $10,177. Only budgeted $30,000 for the whole year. We're ripping through that. Is there a particular reason why that figure's so high?
Yeah, well, as far as why the budgeted number is so low, I don't know. It should have been, I think last year it was higher. We had the two PG&E bills for the treatment plant in August they were a lot higher. We were moving more water, we were recycling a lot more.
Okay.
And they were about here is 33, almost $3,400. And I think the next month after this was right at $4,000.
Just as an aside to that, last year we had a discussion at the board meeting about, and we had talked about this before, I had talked about this before, about doing a mid-year budget review in January. And I think the board at that time, a different board at that time, passed an ordinance to do that every year, to have in January a mid-year budget review, so we knew whether or not we are going in the right direction. And I would hope that we'll be doing that in January. And then the other one I have is on page 3, under the O&M materials car fire at $83,000. I assume that's the FEMA money, isn't it? That we're using for that? O&M materials car fire?
Yeah, that claim is still open.
Yeah.
We still have a couple of things to do with you.
And that's the FEMA money,
That's insurance money.
insurance money, yeah. We did get FEMA money for that too, didn't we?
We have FEMA money for the Backwash Pond repair project,
Okay.
$1.9 million.
Gotcha. Okay.
Back to the water purchase lines. It'd be nice to see the volume of each
Yes.
type of water purchased.
So we,
In the activity report,
the activity report is dollars. I guess we could probably modify that to show units of water.
just a unit.
Yeah, could you maybe do that at the bottom somehow, in terms of volume? If possible.
I'm not sure how else it's reported.
Last page? No?
Oh, well, we got that one too. We got
The last page.
Uh-huh.
Usage.
191.67 for M&I and 68.3 for ag.
68.3 and 191, yeah. Okay, and that's just for the month, for the previous month, that's
For August.
covered by this report, yeah, okay. All right. Well, that's all I have on this. I'm just trying to, understand it better, and also hopefully you can, do a better job of, enumerating what the line items are, so that it's easier to understand for someone who picks it up and just looks at it and goes, oh, let me see what we're doing here. If there's no other questions about it, I would move approval of the consent calendar.
And I'd like to ask one or two questions.
Yeah.
Thank you. In bills paid, I noticed on August 30th, an amount of $1,696.07 was paid to RCAC, and was indicated was loan fund. was curious what that was, since
For
I'm
the
dump
dump
truck.
truck. The dump truck?
Oh, okay, dump truck purchase, all right, very good. The other question was, I noticed there was a payment to Verizon Wireless for $51, and I was curious what that was.
The, on-call phone is a Verizon phone,
Okay,
and I guess we're just down to one phone now.
all right, thank you.
Anyway, nobody else, I will make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Second. All those in favor?
We
Or second?
need a second.
I'll second.
Any questions?
Aye.
There you go.
Aye.
Aye.
And I. Now have a vacancy on our board.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to publicly thank Murray Miller for serving on the board. I'm sorry he decided to quit. He's got other business that he has to take care of. But I just wanted to publicly say I think he did a good job as a board member.
Yes, you did.
Okay, so, we'll put out a notice and,
Yeah, we can, as soon as we get a notice, posted in all the locations, applications will be accepted until 5 p.m. on Thursday, November 11th, which is the day before, I make the board packet for the next regular meeting.
okay, we have to appoint two, yes, did you have a question? No. Okay, we have to appoint two community members to the CAC.
Madam Chairman, I asked to have this put on the agenda because we still do have, and by ordinance of this board, a Citizens Advisory Committee. On the Citizens Advisory Committee right now, we are missing two members. The Citizens Advisory Committee was formed back in November of 2020, and the purpose for the committee was to study and develop a rate schedule for the district, and also to look at, make recommendations on the capital improvement plan and a plan for increasing agriculture in Happy Valley. I think, in my estimation, and you can figure whatever you want, but the CAC, as they call it, CAC, I guess they call it, has been successful in that the CAC did indeed study and come up with a rate schedule. That rate schedule was then adopted by the board or put out by the board to a Prop 218 hearing, and successfully was passed at a Prop 218 hearing. So that aspect of the CAC has been fulfilled. The other two things are outstanding, and they are important for this district, in my estimation, unless the board wants to do something else with the CAC. But my proposal would be to appoint two new members of the CAC and community members of the CAC. And what I have done is I have gone to the HVCC, Happy Valley Community Committee, and apprised them of that fact. And I think that I'm of the opinion, our understanding, that they have a proposal for two members that would be good additions to the committee. Is that correct, or?
Not yet,
What?
not yet.
Not yet?
Can I add some clarification, something we spoke about at the meeting last Thursday was, my concern was is that by ordinance you created the CAC, and that it's a narrow focus, and if you're gonna go into other items, you may need to amend the ordinance to open it up so that the CAC can be a little more involved, if that's the board's wishes.
Yeah, we did talk about that, and I agree, I think and I can ask the rest of the members of the board, but I found that was a very good, vehicle for, bringing those issues, in this case, the rate schedule, to the members of the community, and having the members of the community help us to devise that rate schedule. It worked out, and worked out very well. Cedric, you were a part of that?
Yeah,
And-
yeah. What I would, the way I look at it, in terms of, from a perspective of having survived that time, was that the district was under more duress than it is now. It's still under duress, but it was under more duress because of the lack of direction at the board level, the lack of trust, I think, at the board level the community had relative to the board actually approaching a rate schedule in a way that would be acceptable to the public at large. And so it was a first step, actually, because we were not getting any traction relative to being heard, having evening meetings, you name it. We weren't getting heard at the board level. Fortunately, Irwin stepped up and Murray and pushed for a CAC to get appointed, or an ordinance. That committee did good work, in my estimation. And at this point, I would just want us all to consider, and I'd love to hear what people have to say about this, is that, in my opinion, the CAC served that role. I think the trust, hopefully the trust of the public towards the current board is one that you're being heard and we're being responsive to you all. That's my intention. And the other thing that I think was missing when the CAC was developed, and we're gonna flip the switch on this next Tuesday, is we're gonna start instituting committee meetings, which are a kind of a fundamental process that's supposed to occur as a board. We're supposed to meet, the subcommittees are supposed to meet. Those subcommittees, like the CAC, are brown, notice meetings. So when there's the CAC doesn't provide any shortcuts in terms of process. We've got to get a notice, we have to go there. What I fear is that, and I'm looking at the committees that I'm on, that, I have an obligation to attend and contribute to. I'm on 3, and I'm also on the CAC. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't think I can do the CAC and 3 committees and the board, just from a logistics perspective. But the same things that the CAC are left to work on, for example, capital improvements, would be something that the steering committee would work on, or the finance committee. Either one of those that would fall under that. And I would like to think that we could test drive the committees, the subcommittees a little bit, with you all's participation, showing up when they're noticed, and engaging the 2 board members that are going to be present. And I'm certainly going to have a very open mind and have the mic there won't be any 3-minute time limits on those committee meetings, subcommittee meetings, because they're, in my view, an opportunity to workshop things. Whereas the board, I feel the board process here should be more of a business-like, here's the decision, here's the deliberation, we need an approval, and we move on with the district business in a very, the issues, the nuances should be pretty well resolved at the subcommittee level, unless for whatever reason the subcommittee kind of went off on its own and the 2 board members along with the public just went off in the left field and arrived at something that was just totally unpalatable for the other 3 board members. But I would like to think that the CAC's run its course. I think it served its purpose, but I'm just concerned. Well, I would need to step back from the CAC if it continues forward, just because I don't have that. I don't have the bandwidth to do it as well as the other 3 committees.
The only concern I have is the agriculture, and then if you wanted to work with me on that. So where does that leave that?
The agricultural committee, it looks like you are leading. And you can call a subcommittee meeting whenever it suits you. Notice it, call it, try to rally support for the issues that you feel need to be addressed.
And you don't feel that 2 board members should be present?
I think we ran out of board members.
Well, we need to put another board member in there.
Because, we have 2 on executive, Erwin and you, Joanna. Dave and I are on finance. Legislative, I'm on by myself. Murray used to be on the personnel committee with you, Joanna, which is, there's a void there. We don't have anyone on the JPIA. And Dave and I are on the steering committee, and you're covering the agriculture committee.
Okay,
Somebody else.
what we should do is, when we get the new board member, they might be interested in meeting with me on the ag committee.
They would need to be assigned some duties.
Yeah,
Mhm.
oh yeah, they definitely will, so
By
there's
the-
no change.
yeah. Generally, the chairman of the board assigns duties and hopefully hears what the other committee, board members feel they can handle and prefer, et cetera. So, yeah, we'd be looking to you in the future to direct that person to
I
vacancies in
think
the subcommittees.
Erwin and I really did that at the last coming up.
Yeah, that's right. There was a nice
That was done.
round robin there. I'm happy with how that turned out.
Yeah. Okay, so,
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
yes,
I agree that I think we need to reestablish a more active committee
right.
presence with the board and the public. And with that in mind, I would suggest we just table the CAC for the time being
Right.
until we get another board member and until we get the committees up and running and doing the things that the committees need to do.
They're required to do.
Yeah.
The CAC is kind of an extra, and it served its purpose. It was fantastic because it was an opportunity for the public to coalesce around a problem and be heard. And so that worked.
So do you want to make a motion to that effect?
Well, I don't know that we need to make a motion, but, well, we could do that.
So does that mean the only time the public gets heard is at the CAP meetings?
No, that's exactly the opposite of what I was trying to say. What I was trying to say is not only at the board meetings, we want to hear from the public, and I don't think you've seen, at least in the last several months, anyone being thwarted their opportunity to share their ideas, etc. But the subcommittees, we are bound to have subcommittee meetings that are supposed to function as fact-finding, idea-generating meetings that allow the public to share what their opinion is and bring their information to those particular items. So it's an additional opportunity.
Right.
And the CAC would just be kind of another, just, just be.
When we had the discussions at the meeting with the CAC, they were Brown Act meetings, and everybody, unfortunately, they were all done with Zoom, but then hopefully we're out of that phase now. But they were all open to the public, and public did participate, as you recall, and we got a lot of good ideas about that and how to proceed with the rate schedule. And I can see that happening with the committee meetings as well. I mean, that's the way the committee meetings should work. The committee meetings are Brown Act meetings, and public is invited to participate in that.
Okay, the time that we had that meeting about the general manager, we went out to the community and asked, and we took their ideas.
It was very much a workshop.
Yeah, it was a very good workshop.
It was there was a lot of dialogue and ideas. It was,
It was established. So I think if we can keep doing that, it doesn't have to be monthly, but assuming things.
it should be crossing if you've
Yeah.
got a committee that you're responsible for, I
Yeah.
think that you should be thinking at least once a month, is there something I should be addressing at a committee meeting this month? And even if it's a short meeting, I mean, there could be I think the finance committee should meet monthly,
Right.
just from an activity report perspective.
Yeah, my feeling on the committee, on the subcommittees is that, what I've seen to a certain extent is that we get like half an idea brought to the board. And, since it hasn't been hashed out and worked out, then it gets postponed to the next meeting. So, the function of these subcommittees should be to get the input and get everything down and have it tied out so that when it's brought to the board, there would only be like minor corrections or something. There wouldn't be hey, you forgot to put this in, and so the whole thing falls apart.
Yeah. I think there's a day waiting for us.
That's fine.
Please say your name.
I'm Jackie Longcry, and we did have a couple people volunteer, when Irwin was there last week. We had Ed and Sarah, I believe.
Right.
No, it wasn't Sarah. Well, I know Ed did. So, so we needed one more.
If you continue the
We
CCC.
can continue this and then.
Yeah.
But you have to have 2 board members.
Well, yeah.
We already have 2
Yeah.
board members. We
Yeah.
have myself
Right.
and Cedric, but Cedric wants to get off, and I don't blame him.
Well, if I'm gonna do, yeah,
And my suggestion would have been that if, we were going to address the issue of a capital improvement program, I was gonna make the suggestion that Dave be a part of that, CAC, along with 3 community members.
Yeah.
But I agree with Cedric. that-
also the steering committee too. The steering committee thinks
Yeah.
about those sorts of things as well. Where's the district need to go? And then if they come up with great ideas, they're gonna share those with the finance committee. The finance committee's gonna have to figure out how they're gonna pay for it. Right? And then together, all that input and thinking may manifest itself as something that comes to the board for action, but
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. This just tags right into my earlier comment of the importance of getting it onto the website in a fashion that is easy for the community to see. And if possible, a little more than the minimum 24-hour advance notice. I know the finance committee was buried in agendas, and I know there's an issue with putting more than one agenda on the website, but maybe there can be a special area on the homepage about upcoming meetings or subcommittee meetings or something where that can be put there so the public can easily at glance. Like Johanna, you mentioned the personnel committee meeting, and I didn't attend that one because I couldn't find information about it because it was buried at the bottom of the board packet. So we need to make it more accessible to the public to find out about these things.
Well, with that in mind, then I would, if we need it, since this is an action item, I would move that we table the appointment of 2 new members of the CAC and at this moment, and maybe and explore further the use of the board committee structure to look at the issues that we need to look at going forward, and to bring back the issue of the CAC at a later date to be determined.
Do you want to put that as a motion?
I just did it. That's what I just did. Yeah.
Discussion?
Second.
You go for it. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, C is approve the purchase of new meter reading equipment software. And this is battery meters.
Over the last couple of years, The Route 10 handheld is also outdated, and we no longer have support. The interface software between the handheld and the billing software is no longer supported by Badger Meter. I'm asking the board to approve the purchase of a new handheld meter reading equipment, interface software, and support for $16,000. Actually, it's 16. I messed that up. $16,006. This will also allow the district to start using the newer radio read meters and begin a register replacement program, which means the meters that are currently not being read manually or the old radio reads have failed, we can start using the newer radio reads.
You mean
I
it?
have a question. It occurs to me that if you get new meters, then it'll cut down on the time it takes to read the meters, so you can cut the meter reading dates to a shorter period. For instance, is that right? Yeah. I know years ago when you had no meter readings, it took, what, a week and a half or something?
I'm not sure.
I think it was more than that to read the meters, and that's not very good under the circumstances we have now. So, it would seem that if this is gonna cut it down, what would it cut it down to?
So if everything was a functional radio read, we could read the whole district with that. A long day, but it could be done.
Well, that would leave less questions for the customer, is that, hey, when did you get this reading?
So are you saying that some of the meters have got the electronics to be read remotely, but the handhelds don't communicate with it?
Yeah, so, just depending on the meter, it could be a Route 9, radio read, and those are completely garbage. It could be,
So what, about those, so those are
so this
those?
allows us to start changing out meters to the newer radio reads.
Okay.
So if we were to enter into this customer loyalty program, we'll have the ability to start changing out the non-functioning, radio read registers, if you will. So the price stays the same, it's just a matter of twisting the top off, twisting a new top on and programming it.
Okay, and where do we get the new tops? And how much they?
From Badger Meter. And the reason why we're not replacing the new registers is because we don't have support for the new registers. The old registers are no longer available. They're outdated.
Yeah, and the new hardware that's twisting back on, so that they'll be read by the new Badger meters or whatever they're called.
Yeah. And,
Those we'd be purchasing later?
yes, that isn't included.
Yeah,
Okay.
and would that be part of the grant that we're working on, or you're working on?
Yeah, so there's, I don't know how much of the distribution system improvement project grant is for meter reading equipment, but part of that is also putting meters on second residences, which, that could still stay part of the grant, but, we can't wait 2 years.
Yeah, no, I hear it.
Every month we mess with this, it's a new issue, so.
It just gets more fun, is that what you're saying? Even more
Sure.
fun every time you go out?
Yeah.
So, how many meters do you think we can read? Do we know
Well, we
that?
could,
I mean, electronically.
right now we can, so currently right now, I think we can only read, I think it's 1,800. I think it's 1,800-ish.
Okay.
And we might drive by a meter that read last month, and this month it doesn't read, and it goes into a manual read. And so whoever's on the manual read has to come back and,
Or even it does pick it up, it picks up some super crazy read and tries to build a.
Right, so it might transmit the wrong
So
read.
we have to correct it every time.
It might transmit the wrong read, so if you actually go out and look at the register, it might have a totally different number than what the handheld picked up. And that's the sign of starting to set up.
And are you confident that this particular supplier's has the right technology that's not gonna get outdated?
Yeah, so switching over to the newer radio reads is something other water districts started doing 4 or 5 years ago. The older radio reads, they were starting to be put in like 20 years ago. This also allows us to use LTE or cell-based meter reading registers, which is a whole nother story for another time, which is newer technology. So that technology will be around for a long time, LTE or something.
Okay, and that would be, this system would be.
Correct. If we were to switch from like Badger meter to census, we would have to change brass and everything, and we're looking at, I don't know, probably $2 million.
Oh. So we're doing a relay integration with Badger meters.
So Badger meter's been around since the early 1900s. City of Reading uses Badger, Old Shasta uses Badger. I think the City of Anderson uses Badger. That was just off the top of my head.
Can I ask, you asked it, Cedric, but we didn't hear an answer. What would the cost of the new radio piece on the meter?
I think they're in the $70 to $80 range currently.
Per meter then?
Correct,
So up to 500 or 600 meters would have to be switched out?
at least. That's just a number off the top of my
Give you
head.
guys an idea of the expense.
So this is just the software support, new handheld, the first year subscription, and training, if you will. And this gets us going in the right direction.
So do you anticipate somewhere down the line that you're gonna have to add to this system with more expense?
By purchasing more radio read,
More of the
more of the registers.
register, okay.
Correct.
And how we get this, so with this $16,000 purchase, would that give us the ability to read every one of the meters that we have?
There's some really old ag meters, and I hate to call them ag meters, but they were from the beginning. They're original meters that are not set up for this.
So you still have to go read them?
Yeah, but we're talking like maybe 10 meters, 20
Okay.
meters. They're always gonna be, unless the district invests $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 into upgrading those older 4-inch meters, then they're always gonna be a manual read.
There's about 30 of those 4-inch meters still. in the
Not all, some of them are already newer compound meters that have the radio read capability. But we're talking old meters.
I've got one that's old.
So doing this would get us good for how long?
Oh, I would imagine at least 15 years.
15 years?
10 years.
Oh.
So the majority of this purchase is the engagement fee of $2,400, $7,500, $7,550 in the actual handheld, in training. So you have 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So you have approximately $11,000 in a one-time fee. And the other part of this is the first year subscription. The subscription is based off of how many meters we have to read. So I think they have it down as 2,300 eventually. At 6 cents per meter times 12 months is $1,656 plus $900 in $900 a year in module service units, which actually I think.
So there is an ongoing cost more.
Right, and we should be paying a fee every year.
Yeah.
But since our stuff is so old, they're not charging us, because they don't support it. So it should be budgeted.
There's no support by them.
So the cost per year is about $900?
Plus the monthly charge per meter. The difference would be just under 5,000.
Right now they have us down as having 2 service units, but we're only gonna have one handheld to start. So we can reduce this by $300, so it'll be approximately $2,800 a year.
So how much time do you think we would save in, I know you don't have figures for that, but this might give me a ballpark.
We'll put it this way, we could move the meter reading date comfortably closer to the end of the month and still get the bills out on time. And so, instead of reading in the middle of the month and taking weeks to figure all this out, we might move it closer, like let's say the 24th or the 25th, off the top of my head, once we get this fully functioning.
Right.
So,
So in theory, one day of being out in the field, reading everything, maybe a day of billing versus 2 weeks of.
2-3 days of saying out to the customers, we're gonna read the meters between the 13th and the 16th, or whatever, I think, whatever it is now, the 14th through the 15th.
All week.
And then we gotta do radio read, or we gotta do, rereads, and, yeah, it's,
But that
right now,
would,
right now, it takes us about 3 days to read the meters, maybe 2.
that would only really take effect once you upgraded that 600 or so other meters too.
Right, eventually, we'll be able to get, so this is a step in the right direction.
So I like the idea, I'm just not clear on the engagement fee. I'm not sure, what is that again?
Think of that as like a capacity fee. You pay it up front, you have to buy into the system, you can buy into the program, the loyalty program, the badge loyalty program.
Which is their support.
No, it's more like a capacity fee. Like you buy, it's something you have to pay up front to participate in the program.
Oh, it's your ante.
Right, I mean, capacity fee, you're paying for your share of the district's improvements, needed improvements. In this case, you're paying Beacon/Badger's engagement fee. It's a one-time upfront fee, $2,400.
To upgrade those meters, it would run approximately $50,000. And then the labor.
That's down the road, and we can do that on a monthly basis.
Sure,
We can't do that unless we do this.
I agree.
There was a gentleman, yes.
Yeah, Jim Davis, always looking to save money in my business, so Bill, is that something you could take and hire a part-time individual, kid after school, college student that could come in end of the month, do the driving and keep all your key people on, on the line repairs and things of that nature?
We could, but he's gonna, a meter reader, even with everything fully functioning, is gonna struggle, because there's some meters where you gotta go down driveways, you gotta jump a fence to get close enough, stuff like that, so.
Oh, you guys are young enough to do that, are
So, once this is up, running, fully functioning, everything's changed out, one person can comfortably get the 90% of the meters read, and somebody could still do the radio, the manual reads, the older meters, in a few hours.
Okay.
But I like the idea of hiring somebody else.
Sandy Miners,
10 pages.
years ago, there was one guy in an old beat-up pickup truck that had to jump all the fences and go up and down the driveways. Unlock a padlock on top of that big cement ring, put a ladder down in there, water, black widows, everything, go down in there and read that meter. And that's how our meters were read. Of course, they didn't have as many meters back then as they do now. But my meter got changed. I have a 4-inch ag meter. And, they come around and dug that meter out and changed the orifices in it where it would spin faster. And we took it to the City of Reading Corporation yard, and they put it on that apparatus in their shop and tested it, and it was just barely off. And I didn't pay anything. What'd you say, $2,400 in order to bring these meters into compliance?
No, the $2,400 is, an engagement fee for the software, for the
Oh,
batteries.
for the district,
Correct.
okay. So would there be any charge to the customer?
Would be part of the operating.
I'm sorry, what was the?
Would there be a charge to the customer?
Everything's charged.
Everything is, in theory, everything is being charged to the
Because
customer.
I didn't
The-
pay
the
anything.
money-
I've had 3 meters.
This $16,000, I would, we just got $17,000 from from Shasta County.
Hey,
So-
congratulations.
As far as there being an impact to the general fund, technically, I mean, there is, it'd be $16,000 missing, but we did just get 17,000.
But there'd be no monthly charge on the bill.
No,
That's
the total, so the total for the year was the $2,800. So it would be pennies per customer per month.
We
Dollar a
we
year.
didn't have the electronic, meter things on top of our meters back then. They were just what the government gave us.
Unless I messed it up, we're talking like 9 cents, yeah, a customer per month, and we're not adding a line item for that. Not at $1,000 a line item on the bill.
But we have to do approximately,
So the short answer to your question is no additional cost to each individual.
My second meter was one of those census, and it didn't work, and it didn't hold up. All those little rivets around that big bell thing on the top, they all rusted out.
Yeah.
Then I went back to a Badger again, and it's lasted from 1986 on, and it's accurate. My meter reading is always whatever's on that bill.
That's good. Thank you, Sandy.
Any more questions?
Well, I'll float a motion here, and I'll move we approve the purchase.
Oh, you're a second.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the HDCC, was asked to please not because of illness, so we won't be discussing that tonight.
How come we're not discussing that?
Because Beverly's not here tonight.
Beverly
Oh, yeah,
said.
okay.
So
Early wanted to do it, okay.
we're gonna put it on the next
Next month's agenda.
month's
We're
regular
not on the
meeting.
agenda or as old business.
What?
I
We're
can
not doing
separate.
it. I don't know.
The reason we're not separating out old business and new business is because we're putting it on the agenda, based on importance, order of importance.
I understand.
So, really important things on old business could end up at the bottom. And we're talking about it at midnight.
The only reason I bring this up is because in the past, things like this have been brought up in meetings and were voted to put to the next meeting, and it was forgotten.
I'm sorry what they did in the past, but.
Oh, no, I understand, we just want to make sure that we're moving forward in the right direction. That's all.
And I get enough phone calls about all this stuff during the month. I can't imagine something getting missed, but there's always another month, Scott.
Put it on next month.
I'm on it.
Report on the enterprise Anderson Brown Sustainability Agency. And, Erwin went to that.
Yes.
And
I'd
so
like
did
to-
Cedric.
No, Cedric didn't.
It's ours. Change your name. Go ahead.
Okay, the Clear Creek Community Services District is a member of the Enterprise Anderson Groundwater Sustainability Agency. I'll give you a little history on it. As a matter of fact, I wrote up a short history on this. I sent the short history to all of the board members via email, and I assume you guys got it, and to Bill, and I gave one to Johanna tonight. I have 3 of them here, if anybody wants one. It's the history of the Enterprise Anderson Groundwater Sustainability Agency. And I only have 3 because my printer ran out, or the printer printed some more. So there they are right there.
Why don't you explain to them what is that?
And I want to talk to you about what it is.
Right, okay.
There's a lot of people, including some of the board members here, don't know that we belong to this.
If someone really needs it.
Many years ago, this agency used to meet with all of the other water special districts in Shasta County, and they used to call themselves the WRMS Committee, WORMS they called them. And it was the general managers used to meet, and they used to talk about issues relative to running water companies. And after a bit, this is long time ago, 80s, and,
There's still worms meetings.
it's still worms meetings?
Yes.
Yeah, we got still worms meetings, there you go. Anyway, as an outgrowth of the worms meetings, some of the people who were on the various boards of directors of some of these water agencies, especially the ones that had wells, and we had wells, we drilled our wells in the mid-90s, or toward the late 90s, we're concerned about whether or not we have enough groundwater underneath us to be able to support all the people who drill wells. Not the private wells, because they're just a small portion of it, but the public wells, like City of Reading, Anderson only used well water, Bella Vista, City of Reading, I said that, I think. Anyway, several entities in Shasta County have wells. Some pump a lot, some pump a little. And so we became concerned, that was before I was involved in it, although I was a county supervisor at the time, and I remember going to some of those meetings. They were concerned about the water underneath us and how much we had, how much we were pumping, whether or not we were pumping too much, whether we had a lot to pump. So the Worms Group, an offshoot of that, engaged with the McConnell Foundation. They got a grant from the McConnell Foundation to do a study of the groundwater. And they did that. It was not as comprehensive as the later one that was done, but it was pretty darn comprehensive of the groundwater that we have under us. And about that time in 1992, the state of California passed a groundwater management act that allowed local entities to do an AB 3030 groundwater plan. And the idea behind the study of the groundwater was to eventually do a groundwater plan. The groundwater plan never came about, partly because of cost, but it never came about. And then in 2014, the state passed 3 laws that combine what we'll call the SGMA, Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, SIGMA, they call it. And we had already been meeting about this before, and so the entities, and we were included, Johanna was included in some of those meetings. We met informally for over 2 years and discussed the groundwater, and we all were under the conclusion that we had a lot of groundwater, and we really didn't need to have to worry about managing it, because we were never going to be able to draw that much from it to be able to do any damage to it. But the state of California stepped in, and the Department of Water Resources said, no, your basins up here are considered to be medium priority. There are high priority basins down in the San Joaquin Valley where they have taken so much groundwater that it's shrunk 10 feet.
The land
The land has shrunk 10 feet subsidence. We haven't had that situation up here, and we protested that to the Department of Water Resources and said, we don't believe that. And they said, well, we do, and you have to do a groundwater sustainability agency. And if you don't want to do that, you can protest that to the state, but if you lose, then you will wind up doing a groundwater sustainability agency and a groundwater sustainability plan on your nickel. You'll have to pay for it. But if you form the groundwater sustainability agency, the state will pay for the formation of the agency and will pay for the groundwater sustainability plan. So, the 6 agencies that were involved in this whole thing met over a 2-year period of time, and politics plays a big part in all this, because nobody wanted to engage with anybody else. But we finally formed what was called a groundwater sustainability agency, made up of ACID, City of Anderson, Clear Creek Community Services District, Bella Vista Water District, Shasta County, and what I said, did I say six already?
No.
There's six already, missing one. Anyway, there's 6 agencies involved.
Enterprise?
No.
No, it's part of City of Red.
Here we are. County, Shasta County, Bella Vista Water District, Reading, us, ACID, and Anderson, 6 of us. That's what the GSA is made of. And, up until now, the study was started to be done by CH2M, and I think they call themselves Jacobs now. Jacobs Engineering bought them out. And, as of the meeting that I went to 2-3 days ago, or whatever it was, they finally have finished the study of the groundwater basin, and they have finally finished the groundwater sustainability plan. And now that goes out to the public. The public has an opportunity to comment on it, and then it will come back to the Groundwater Sustainability Agency, and then from then forward will be sent to the Department of Water Resources, State of California, by the end of January next year. All said and done. But here's where things start to, the rubber meets the road. All this has been paid for by the state so far. There will come a time, because of the groundwater sustainability plan, that the plan will have to be implemented. Now, let me just stop here and say right now, we don't have much implementation in a plan because we have so much groundwater under us that we are not going to be in any way, shape, or form in any predicament as far as drawing water from the groundwater. We got involved, Crip got involved because we had wells and we wanted to protect our ability to drill wells in the future, because we had some developments that were going to take place out here, and part of those developments were going to be that in order to put the development in, you had to drill a well. North Fork Ranch was one of those, some of you remember that, and the West Cottonwood development down there was another one, they had to drill a well. North Fork Ranch was going to drill 3 wells, I believe. And we wanted to protect that right to be able to drill those wells. By the way, let me just say here and now, this plan only affects the agencies that draw water from the aquifer. It does not do anything as far as private wells. Private wells are private wells. If you want to go drill a private well, go do it. Still okay now, it will be under the sustainability plan.
That's good.
But the sustainability plan will have to be implemented. There is going to be a cost to that. The sustainability plan indicates in the last chapter of that plan, before the appendices, that it's going to cost anywhere for Clear Creek, anywhere from about $15,500 a year to somewhere around $35,000 a year to still be a member of the GSA, Groundwater Sustainability Agency, and that will buy you a seat at the table. That will buy this group a seat at the table, and it will give us a voting membership on the GSA. The other option would be, well, there are 2 more options. The other option would be to remove ourselves, withdraw from the MOU. Instead of the 6, there would be 5. And it may be less than that, actually, when the rest of them take a look at the cost of it. But what would happen is, if we were to withdraw from the MOU, then the other 5 would still meet as the Groundwater Sustainability Agency, and the plan would still be in effect, and it would still apply to us. We then would become under their jurisdiction. The other way, the other option that we could pursue, and it's open to us as far as the law is concerned, is we could do our own groundwater sustainability plan. Right now, they estimate it costs about $1 million to do that. So we could do that. So there's where we are right now.
Can't we just copy
I think you can copy and paste some of that, you bet. I would think so, you know. So it may not cost $1 million, but it's gonna cost them money to do that. And, we have to make that determination. My suggestion to this board is that we invite at one of our next meeting, maybe December, or pretty soon, I guess it would have to be, maybe the January meeting if we had to, a representative of the management committee for the groundwater sustainability agency, and one of those guys is a employee of the city of Reading. And we could also invite one of the people from Jacobs, who put the plan together, to come here and give us a better idea of what our options are and what we can get from either staying in or dropping out. I would suggest we do that. That's where we are right now. And so I'm bringing this to the board to let them know about it, bringing it to you, to give you a little history of how we got to where we are. And it ain't going away. It's gonna be a factor in the future, because we are either going to use more, I'm sure we will be using more well water in the future. We need to talk about that. And we will see in the future, if there's any growth, we will see new developments come in. And they're gonna have to bring their water with them. Anyway.
Question,
Yeah.
can we pump water not being in the GSA?
Yes.
Yeah, well, you're in the GSA anyway. I mean, yes.
One way or another, you have to show compliance with.
Yeah, you still have to comply.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
And the district, Clear Creek, has already participated financially in forming the GSA.
Mm-hmm.
We've gotten bills. I believe we.
So,
Most
all came from
from a grant.
From what?
From a grant. There was a grant.
Yes.
Yeah, but I believe that there was some bills that the district paid. This is before I was involved, and actually maybe before I went involved.
I'd be curious if you look that up and find out, because.
I know that I've spent hours. I know that I've spent hours participating in getting Jacob's information. I used to go to the management committee meetings. So the district has participated quite a bit, but to start over, and form our own plans is not worth the potential of $15,000 a year.
No, it'd be stupid for us to.
Because all the engineering, all the engineering, all the hydrology that's been done is ridiculous.
I just was wondering about how much flexibility or authority we have over the rate of our pumping and or, additional wells, etc. if we're not a member of the groundwater management.
I can address that. And it is, if we were in a high priority district, area, where there were lots of constraints on the pumping, then we would damn well be sure to be part of it. But there's so much water under us, there's so few constraints when you read the plan on pumping, that it really isn't any of our business to be involved in sitting on the board.
So the county will, because we're in the county jurisdiction, it's their JSA. If we abdicate our participation, does the county then get to dictate our
The
usage?
GSA gets to dictate.
Because we're a public agency.
Yeah.
It's not a private, we're subject to a different set of rules than private.
But the GSP spells out, I will email you the GSP, and also the MOU, and I'll send it to Bill as well, and if anybody wants it, they can get it to Bill, I guess. Or put it on the website, something like that.
The full document is 2,220 pages.
Is it on the website?
Yeah, all this, all the information, there's links on our website to take you to the City of Reading portal to look at anything
Oh,
to do
okay,
with the GSP.
yeah, you're right, okay.
You had a question?
The other question I had, if I
I'm
can
sorry. Oh, that's
entertain that, is why are the costs distributed proportionally. When I look at the city of Reading's water use and potential water use and growth of water use, why are we paying the same amount as them? And why are we paying the same amount as Shasta County? And why are we paying the same amount as City of Reading? Why isn't that set on, you know, the quantity of water we're using, and as you create more demand, you pay more?
Because we each
No,
have, we each have a
what
seat
good
at the table.
questions. Those are the questions we asked when we formed this
That was a terrible.
CSA. You know, that was the
Yeah, I
politics.
understand. No, I'm not pointing your fingers, Bill.
That's why we took 3 years to put this thing together.
Can we renegotiate that?
Sure. Yeah, we
I mean, I don't necessarily wanna, my first inclination is not to, not abdicate our, you know, our own rights relative to that groundwater. And there's a tremendous amount of, you know, cost that went into that. If we step out, do we have to buy back in if we wanna somehow get authority, you know, of rearages, et cetera? And if the price was more proportional to our use, it seems like a good insurance policy than just going it alone. I mean, as a public agency with the lack of resources that we, you know, have, I don't know that it's smart to not have friends in the groundwater business, right? But I have to say, I have to do some more studying on this, but those are the things that come to my mind.
Well, that's why I'm asking the board to invite
Right,
people from the groundwater sustainability management, from the groundwater sustainability agency, and Jacobs to come here and talk to us
Yeah.
and answer these questions. And I would suggest we do that in December.
And as part of the regulatory steering committee, I'll reach out to Shasta County Planning Director and just ask them what their impression of this is, and just to get some information.
The contact for, Shasta County for, the GSP would be,
Charlene Beer
Okay.
in the Public Works Department.
Okay.
And she's pretty good. She knows everything.
I'll see if the planning director has the same answer she does.
yes.
All right, Jim Davis, the study is complete?
The study,
Is it?
the study is now complete.
Okay, has it been submitted to the state?
No, not yet.
Okay, so how do we know they're gonna accept it?
Well, let me tell you that the study that has been done as to their specifications.
Okay.
The study was done by
It will
Jacobs.
be accepted.
Okay, so in the long term, if we have that capability, why would we want to belong to, in other words, if the 5-party or 6-party group is together, I would suspect that they all have water. So,
Yes.
so basically, this whole area should be left alone.
Well, let me back up just a little bit. We protested to the state that we are not a medium priority.
Right.
We think we're low priority. We think today, all the people that are sitting on that GSA think today that we're a low priority. But the state said, no, you're a medium priority.
Until the study, right?
And, what's that?
Until the study will bring you into low priority.
Well, we think the study will show we're low priority. We can now, because we have the study done as according to the state, and we have a GSP plan according to the state, we can now go to the state and say, we protest. How do we go about it? We want out.
Right.
We'll see where that goes. I'm sure that there's a lot of people, as a matter of fact, all 6 people on that GSA that would love to do that. We think to a person that it's just overkill.
What about this for a reality in the future? Our almond growers down in the valley, they also have water rights possibly from the river, and maybe they are gonna pump the living hell out of their aquifer, and our own lack of understanding of how those aquifers are connected, without being part of this groundwater management agency, we won't be able to be part of the, and maybe we don't need to, maybe we just coattail, I don't know. But if our groundwater is affected by the size of the straws downriver, and they just start pumping the heck out of it and then selling their excess river water through the delta to some place in LA. I mean, you know,
That's
we
a
can
possibility.
speculate a lot of different ways on that, I just.
Yeah, that's a possibility because our water, our groundwater, it starts up here and it spills over down
Oh,
there.
yeah, it's all,
Yeah, it just goes down there.
we're at the top of the,
Yes.
Exactly.
We're at
So
the top.
the glass, and
It's
when they
quite
start hard there, we're.
Intrusion back
It's
up.
quite conceivable that the straw down there could suck our water down, it's true. But they also have to have a groundwater sustainability plan as well. And part of that plan would not be that they put a big straw in the ground and suck our water up. So,
Well, sure it would.
No,
Their plan would be to justify it.
They have to manage it on their own
no, it
basis.
doesn't seem to work that way.
There's gotta be quite a
That's what we want to do.
Okay,
But anyway, my suggestion is to have somebody come.
I like that.
In December
I
and
think we
really
should
get into
ask
this.
that question.
Really get into this.
And see what they.
So we're all guessing Irwin's suggestion of having an expert come to do it is the best.
I
We're all
agree,
guessing.
I agree.
I mean, all this is futile
Right.
conversation.
I mean,
It's fun though.
Are you gonna add to?
I would like to. I was waiting.
Are you waiting for something new
No.
to say?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay, that's
Okay.
very good thought.
Erwin mentioned that public comment. Well, you need to know
Right.
that public comment ends on November 12th.
Right.
Okay? And on page 235 of the report, it breaks down the actual costs, administrative, testing, whatnot.
Right.
Erwin did mention that in the grant are 2 wells, test wells will go in. One, Airport Road in the parks right near 44, and also in Anderson or whatever, around Jim Dandy. And they tested 3 different levels, 50 feet, between 150, 100 and 150, and then a deeper one, based on domestic or ammonite type
Right.
wells. But in that chart on page 235, they break down a low range, a high range, and an expected range for the costs. And it gives you various categories for that. Now, on the low range, the cost to us would be actually $22,000 a month, I mean a year. The expected one is 28, and the high range, if it went that way, would be 50,000 a year. And that's on a 50-year monitoring process. So you're looking at potential between 1.1 and $2.5 million over the course of that time.
Yeah, every 5 years, the groundwater sustainability plan has to be updated, so there's cost to do that. But
That's the facts.
let's hear from the people, and you guys be a part of this.
Right.
We'll be a
You
part of
can
this,
ask
we'll listen to it,
Yeah.
and we can make some decisions on what we want to do as an agency.
Yes.
And I add one last little piece to that, real quick. As being part of the agency, we would share an equal cost if Reading goes through a lot of growth and has to mitigate groundwater loss by projects. We would share in the cost of those projects, whether they be catchment basins, percolation ponds, or whatever. We have no idea what those potential costs are.
Erwin, do you know who signed us up for a proportional share of that? Because I think we
That
screwed
would,
up that pretty substantially.
but if you, and I'll send it to you, if you look at it, it's an MOU. We did not, and specifically did not form a joint powers agreement because we wanted flexibility in that regard.
Well,
And let me finish. The only way we could get the GSA in place was to have everybody agree to an equal share, knowing full well that at the end of this, when the GSP was done, that things were likely to change.
the MOU allows us to leave.
Huh?
The MOU allows us to withdraw
Yes.
unilaterally,
Yes.
but it doesn't.
Yeah, you can change the MOU. And in the future, you know, the agencies, minus us maybe, might want to form a joint powers agreement, I don't know. But that's up to them in the future. You're looking at politics here. This is all part of politics. And dealing with all these other agencies, my God, it was almost miraculous that we got them all to be in the same room together.
Where did the costs come from? I don't get what we're paying for monitoring.
Monitoring,
And administrative.
monitoring, administrative, and updating of the GSP.
It's prepaid, For the new next report.
For the next report, yeah. So there you are. And I would suggest we invite the people, Bill, if we can do that. Get them here.
You're right.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions.
Yes.
A lot of questions.
And that's why we should invite them. But now he said November 12th.
November,
Well, is the last day for
December,
public
December.
input.
Oh, December.
No, November 12th is the last day for public input into the GSA.
I thought it was in December.
No, it's November 12th. It's
It's
coming up.
going to the board, the GSA, in December.
If you look at the first couple of pages of the 2200 plus, it does mention that public comment must be made before November 12th.
Anyway, there is the whole study is like 2,000 pages, but, a little over 2,000 pages, but there is a 25-page executive summary in the beginning, so if you don't want to wade through 2,000 pages, you can do the executive summary.
Who's the lead agency on the?
The lead agency on this is, the GSA.
To the board.
City ready?
Well, City of Reading is providing the personnel, to some of the personnel. The county is providing some of the personnel, which would be Charlene Beard. I can't think of the guy's name that's in the county. And of course, what's his?
Josh Watkins.
Josh, yeah.
Yes.
Josh. And then Jacob, of course, is handling the study and the plan. So we're gonna invite.
Wow, that's not much time.
But after it goes to the state in January, we'll have an opportunity to make our minds up what we want to do.
Are they coming or?
Well, I'd like to restructure the fees so that the people that incur the growth and use more water are carrying the.
And you're not the only one. I will tell you right now that ACID feels the same way. It's a small agency and they don't like the idea of paying 16-point-something% of all expenses.
Yeah.
But that is going to take a negotiation with within all six people.
Does that have to happen? That doesn't have to happen before November 12th, does it?
No.
We don't have to have a placeholder?
No.
Okay.
Anyway, that's it for groundwater.
So,
Wow.
are you
Just-
saying
I will tell you-
November, we should have them come and talk with us?
Oh, wait, this is October, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, November, yeah, why don't we have it done in November? Bill, if we can do that, you think?
We're gonna be busy writing our comment letter.
Yeah.
So,
I'm sorry.
I would suggest we do it
The
as soon as
CAC
possible.
will.
What was the
Where's-
direction?
what's CAC?
Where are they?
I would suggest we do it as soon as we can. And the November meeting would be a good time to do it. By the way, I want to mention something to you. Again, it's been established that we have 6.5 million acre-feet of water sitting under us. Not under all of us, and there's pockets in here and there, but generally speaking, 6.5 million acre-feet of water. Shasta Lake, when it's full, only has 4.5 million acre-feet, so it's bigger than Shasta Lake. Do you know how much we draw in Shasta County every year from that? 20,000 acre-feet. That's it.
And how many is that City Reading? And do they turn around and sell it to us for a god
Yeah,
price?
right,
Yes,
yeah.
they do.
Yes, they do, yes, they do.
700,000 acre feet of our aquifer flows into the Sacramento River to go south because of what's called the Red Bluff Arch of
Yeah,
geological
that's right.
formation.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Get
there's
into-
700,000 acre feet just perking right into the river, south of us.
There's a lot of water, a lot of water. Now, that doesn't take into consideration drought, of course, but that has been looked at in the study as well. And the conclusion is that it would take one heck of a drought to really deplete our supply.
The study even mentioned, estimates of a 20-year drought after 2051, and then in 2071, there would be no measurable impact of a 20-year drought
Yeah,
on the groundwater level.
right. Yep.
So why
We are sitting pretty.
why would we?
You could triple the amount of water we take out of the groundwater tomorrow, and it would still have no effect on the groundwater level. It's in the study,
That's
and
right.
yet the state considers us to be a medium priority. We say we're not a medium priority, we're a low priority.
Okay.
Okay, that's all I have to say.
Okay, next we're down to F. The drought penalty modification per billing period, 9/14/21 to 10/30/21. And I've asked Bill.
Well, this is kind of my idea, so.
Yeah.
What's your idea, Bill?
What's your total
It's a
on
good
this
idea.
I agree.
request?
Here we go.
Okay.
Okay. In the first month of penalties, we had 849 total penalties. Totaling 41, actually some of those were modified, but on the journal, it's got $41,655. In this last, in October, the bill went out October 1st, there was 565 total penalties. So we're noticing a reduction in total penalties. Pre-adjustment was $267,550. And we've adjusted through a lot of work on my dad.
Yep.
122 so far, and that might have changed because before, after I got that number, I might have adjusted this. We're gonna go with 122. 122. We just read the meters last week. We have no way of, right now, no way of seeing where we're at penalty-wise, dollar volume or number of penalties. But based on usage, I can guarantee you that number's gone down. I'm asking the board to consider setting the penalties for this last month, or this last week's reading. That bill goes out at the beginning of November to 0.
Yeah.
And that water's already been captured, so there's, nobody can, go all wild. I can't tell you the exact amount of money we're going to lose in penalties, because once those bills go out, everyone's gonna be expected to protest them and get them adjusted. We are spending, just me, I'm spending 4 hours a day sometimes adjusting penalties. That's not counting Chad or Kristen. Variances, I've approved a few variances for medical, dialysis machines, stuff like that. And I started to approve some ag before I went out on some leave. But there's 100 and
The last count was 145.
145 variances. And if everybody qualifies for a variance, well, I'm gonna be busy just doing variances and protests. We're running out of staff time. System report. We have, in October, we used 7 acre-feet of surface water and 171 acre-feet of groundwater. And that was last month. This month, we're not using any water. I have to split.
It's raining.
I have to split numbers to figure out exactly how much water we're using, but I think, and just because we went over, we shut the wells are shutting themselves down because we're not using enough water. The system is suffering. We went, conservation has been real.
It's this right here, Bill. This was for
August.
August, okay.
Yeah. I should be working on September's now, but I don't have time. Right now, I think just because we're using more surface water than groundwater, the wells keep shutting themselves off because we're filling the tanks. Wells are shutting themselves down. We're using more surface water than we are groundwater. I think we've used 10 acre-feet so far of surface water this month, so 20 days in. I think we're at 50-something acre, 40 or 50-something acre-feet of 48. Close enough.
And,
Groundwater.
so how much surface water do we have left until?
I'm getting there.
Okay.
So normally this is part of my report at the end of the meeting. we've used, of the city of Reading surface water, we used 476 acre feet of the 700 acre feet of cheaper surface water, which is $404, it's not cheap, but the cheaper option. It leaves us 224 acre feet of surface water, of the cheaper water. We still have the 500 acre feet of the more expensive water.
So we shouldn't have to tell them.
Moving forward, we need to, because the rates are up where they need to be, so we can sell some water, we need to somehow encourage usage a little bit. The customers have demonstrated conservation.
I have nothing to water.
It's all dead.
There are a few customers that don't care, but overall, I'm reporting that the customers have demonstrated conservation. We're operating the system like we are right now, not using any water. We're finding some of the dead end streets with a lower than desirable chlorine residual. We're gonna start seeing stagnant water. And I understand that the customers are just afraid to use any water. So for right now, just to relieve the staff, I'm requesting that there be a motion to set the penalties to 0. I'm also asking the board to consider, I really don't want to do a special, but to consider setting the penalties for 0 for an additional month. Just to see what happens. Because the only thing that's keeping the customer rate down is the water users from using water.
So what was our use, let's see. Oh, shice. What was our total water use in September?
September, we used 7 acre feet of surface water, 171 of groundwater.
178 total.
History.
Yeah, history for November, December, it goes way down. No one's watering outside.
I'll gladly flood my property.
It's gonna rain like 5 inches. It's gonna rain like
Take the bucket out of my shower.
I think it's wonderful that you guys want to make the penalty 0 now. However, we used to use 150 units a month, and we dropped ours down to 28. Everything on our property is dead. And now all of a sudden, you're gonna let people that overuse not have penalties? I think that's a slap in the face to everyone who's been conservative and has dropped their usage. And this is exactly what we tried to tell the board when you put in those ridiculously high penalties. This was going to happen. My question is, if you're gonna not take this money from penalties, how are you gonna pay for the water that we bought? Where's that money gonna come from? You might wanna think about that.
Water bill coming up 230 plus thousand.
I would like to address that. When we first put the penalties and the drug ordinance in, we, at that time, did not have that 700 acre feet of Reading water at our disposal. It was subsequent to that.
Went to the Bureau.
Bureau, yeah, but you guys went to the
Did
Bureau.
the Bureau, that's how, they said they would look into it and see if they could get it.
That was the Knight's Landing and all that.
But we asked you to change, after we knew we were getting it, we asked the board to reconsider the 29 units, and you guys would not do that. You were very hard-headed about that.
What the plan was to utilize a variance system, because October could easily be a dry month, and we could still have dry months in December, February, and we have to make it through February. So there was a great deal of concern that we lose control of being able to manage and protect our relationship with the Bureau relative to how much surface water
I
we use.
think you worried about
And
that more than you worried about the
Being able
customers.
to just fine tune things just so is really difficult when you don't have control of 2,710 customers' behavior relative to a meter that you don't have any control over relative to their usage, right? So there's a certain amount of, there's a lot of unknowns. The good news is that we didn't go over the precipice relative to our surface water use. We do have a drought rate in place that I think is what Bill is suggesting we rely on in terms of recouping the water that's been used. The severity of the penalties, as I've said all along, while it has rankled many customers, the idea was to keep us from going over the cliff relative to our Bureau of Reclamation contract, because we didn't have the surface water. And in the time frame when we were able to secure that additional 700 acre feet, and the change in district customers' behavior, and now rain, it does appear that we could have done something better if we could have foreseen all those things, like indeed the city of Reading allowing us to get that water. The Bureau of Bella Vista giving us an unsecured loan for $56,000.
But this happened months ago.
The well's not taking a dump on us. So there's a lot of things that have happened that have worked in our favor. And I, for one, regret that we had to go through this process, for sure. And I would like to think that next year, if we can see a drought coming, I think we might as well prepare ourselves for a drought, because the Shasta Lake's not going to recharge, Trinity Lake's not going to recharge, unless we have just a tremendous winter. We might, but we need to prepare for curtailments from the Bureau. We need to have a plan in place. We need to figure out we need to shop for water. That's some of the things that we're going to talk about next Tuesday, on the 26th, so that when we have a monthly allocation to individual customers, it's not as draconian as what we had to go through. I mean, when you don't have any surface water and you have to rely on those groundwater wells that easily could have gone to heck in a handcart. We could have gone days where there was no water without, I guess we could have pleaded our case with the Bureau for surface water at that time, but there was a lot of things not in our favor at the time, if you really looked at them from a realistic perspective. So, I'm sorry we went through it. A lot of stuff at my place died, and I'm not happy about that either. So, and we should have been better prepared.
When you got the extra water, we asked you to reconsider.
And when I did the math,
You guys wouldn't
let me share with you the math that I did. I did math that allowed us to go to an average of 41 HCF, and it would have brought us right, using variances. So we would only allow, that would assume that the people that aren't going to use a lot of water would continue to not use a lot of water. And I tried to estimate what sort of quantity of variances Bill could dole out. So I was trying to read the proverbial tea leaves, and it only amounted to 43 acre feet a month, and our capacity to be able to receive variances, turn them around, get them approved, have the penalties worked out, adjusted for when, staff time. I mean, right now we haven't done any of those things, and staff is just barely bobbing above water trying to keep the district functioning administratively. And so what Bill is suggesting, and I know it's not something you favor, because you just said you don't like the idea, is to hit the pressure relief valve, not have the penalties because the behavior of the customers changed.
Do you have the money to allow, is the district in the financial?
We've already
Can
lost.
we not argue about this?
I'm happy to share this. We've already lost the money on the water earlier in the year. Why? Because our rates didn't support any of the water use that we were doing.
Right.
The water rates now, under the drought rate proposal, does cover all of our administrative costs and all of the water costs. When the base rates kick in, we will be whole and will be traveling in a direction of financial stability. But there is no way that I feel like the severity of the penalties was simply to change people's water use behavior. They've done that. So I struggle mightily to leave those in place just to make, well, fantastic. I don't think that that we should just leave them in place to recoup a few more dollars, because we ran deficits of substantial deficits through the early part of the year that we'll never recoup. I mean, we could recoup a little, but we ran big deficits. $84,000 in July, $45,000 in August, $108,000 in September.
So why don't you reduce them by 50%? And just send a notice out to everybody that their penalties are being reduced by 50%.
Bill can explain how he's been adjusting the penalties.
I know, I understand, but
Because
our neighbor got theirs adjusted, and our other neighbor who had beautiful green lawns, beautiful plants everywhere, and went way over, they got theirs adjusted. Everything on our property is dead, and we get nothing, and I am fed up with them. If this is where the board is gonna go, that's fine, but I don't wanna hear in a year that we're financially in the red again, because you guys decided to give everybody, you know,
we'll be digging out of what has been created, the losses that this district's incurred over the last 4 or 5 years. We'll be digging out of that for some time.
Well, don't add to them.
Yeah, we're trying to do that, and it troubles me as well. It troubles me no end to think of folks that snub their nose at trying to help the district along and went ahead and blew past the penalties, and maybe that is a bad message to send.
Well, my neighbor said she would just pay the penalties because she didn't want her yard to die.
Yeah,
So
well,
now
I
we're telling
know.
her she doesn't have to pay any penalties. It doesn't seem fair.
Yeah, I hear you.
I have a question
Can
for
we
Bill.
ask Bill to explain how the adjustments were?
Excuse me,
I'm
I have a
sorry.
question for Bill.
I was starting.
I have a question for Bill. Bill, you're asking us to take the drought ordinance that we have, that was passed legitimately by this board, and you're asking us to just suspend the penalties in the drought ordinance, but not to suspend the amount that a customer can use, the 29 HCF. Do you want
all I'm asking for right now is for this last meter reading, that we just read meters for last week, is to set those penalties to 0.
Okay.
So it's a one-time request.
Okay, and that,
So
so the
the
drought
ordinance
ordinance will stay
still
the
stays in
same.
effect.
The drought ordinance is in effect, and you're asking us to suspend those penalties to 0 in this coming bill and the next one?
No, so tonight I'm asking for just this last, from September to October
Okay.
reading. And consider at the next meeting, hopefully not a special meeting, to set them at 0 we still want to see some conservation, but we need to see we need to see some water.
So
Not only financially, but
suspend them for
operationally.
September, October billing, and then, or the October billing, and then to revisit the proposal in
Correct.
November?
So it would be the billing period from 9/14 to 10/13.
Okay.
Bill, if you were to adjust, instead of making it 0, if you made it just $100 across the board, anybody that goes over pays 100, would that give you the same kind of effect?
You know, if we made a flat penalty, if you went over the 29, everyone pays the flat penalty. there's no protest and I don't have to do any variances, that'd be awesome. I mean, I'm trying, we're good.
No, I was just.
There's things I should be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
There's things Kristen should be doing.
yeah.
And Chad and whoever else wants to help with that. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
What sort of, yeah.
Okay, well, then, if you modify it, like I said, I think that the variances and that are part of the, part of the ordinance. So, it would be a suspension of those, items and just setting it flat.
Well, if it was set to zero, I wouldn't have to try to plug in all the variances and the rest of the protest between now and next Wednesday.
Yeah.
Thursday.
Yeah. No, like I said, I was just trying to address the concern that, like, there's some people that actually did,
If we're lowering it, no.
Well, you still have to go through the protest if you're gonna avoid the penalty table. So my thought is we waive the penalties for the next
You've
one.
been up there about 10
This
times,
last
I'm
one,
next.
you're just gonna have to bump up do the adjustments.
You got a coin.
I think that's fair for the status quo, how people were, trying to respond to, the structure that they were working within. And I think on a going forwards basis, it's a lot fairer, but not to do it after the fact. Because I think that messaging that you just snubbed your your responsibility to support your community water district by conserving, etc. I think that's the wrong message to send.
I think Bill's idea is 100 times better. I got a preacher here that's on his deathbed.
We got some other folks.
You can hear me. I got a preacher that's here on his deathbed. His wife walks with a walker, is blind. They didn't even know they had a leak, like you had. People came over to visit them and found a leak. Their bill's $400 penalty. A lot of this stuff is totally unintentional. I get your drift. I know what you're saying, but I think it's better overall for the community to do what Bill's saying. We're not trying to punish people. You just said we're sitting on a huge aquifer. How can you charge people when we have the water ability? It doesn't make sense to say one thing and then turn around and say a 180. And I really don't think the penalty is going to gain anything.
What I was suggesting is that we continue with the previous, we don't make the adjustment for the previous months. Bill can make adjustments to any of the penalties that are protested. We've already directed him to do that. That's paperwork that Bill wants to avoid doing.
I got that.
But it does reflect the direction that we provided him and what we shared with the customers following our last meeting, which was you can use your 29, you can go over, there's gonna be you can get your protest adjusted, your penalty adjusted.
Right.
And then going forward, I like Bill's idea,
Right.
we'll just waive it going forward and then it's free. If they need help with a protest, filing a protest form, I mean, if you can
They
help
don't
with
know
that.
anything about it.
I understand that, and so those are the sorts of things that.
They don't even leave their property.
Yeah, I know.
Okay?
So,
No, you don't know. I'm telling you about it.
well, I know, that's
They
great.
don't know, okay?
Are you gonna help them with that then? Or, I mean,
What?
are you planning on helping file the form then, to help them?
I just found out about this like 2 or 3 hours ago.
Yeah,
But, well, 2 or 3 hours before coming here.
Right.
Let's
I've
find
known
out
about it
information
about 5
about that
hours
and
now.
make the
Yeah.
adjustment.
You know, this is unbelievable.
So, happy Thanksgiving, Merry Christmas, no penalties for November and December.
I would say forget the penalties.
This is getting out of hand.
Forget the penalties. We're really
I
out
want to
there.
hear from this lady. She's been very patient.
My name's Brenda Konachek, and I'm not sure if you're hearing what Bill is saying, but being a bookkeeper, it takes a lot of time to do that.
Right.
Not only calling the office and having them answering the phones, oh, you need to fill out a protest form. What he's asking is if you can, this bill hasn't been sent out yet. He's trying to save hours here, hours of labor costs.
Some frustration.
Right.
Plead for help.
I mean, the thing of it is, zero it out. As for animals, I need more. I had an accident, or a T busted. I came in, I showed him, I know I'm gonna be one coming in for the protest letter. So to avoid all that and all the paperwork and people calling and being upset and all that, I say we do what Bill says.
That's right.
Okay.
Absolutely. That's what the people wanna do. And I don't like you flipping it on me saying, what, am I gonna go take credit?
No, I just
I
want,
could have done that to you.
no, you could give it to me if you're not going to, and we could get it worked out. That's what I'm saying, is those people need some help, so
We're losing.
if you're not gonna do it, I'd be happy to fill out that form.
Excuse
To
me.
make sure that, because how else?
You
would
have a
people know?
gavel.
I will take you wrong, I'm sorry.
We have,
That's all right.
But I just think that
right,
one moment Erwin's talking about, we're sitting on 6.5 million acres, and the next sentence is the penalties, and it's like, God, how can you try to control people by giving them fines and threatening them with fines and threatening them
All right.
with money?
I
know
wanna
you
just
did.
take
I know
a
you
minute
were
here.
seeking to get the
Thank
road
you.
back up.
Thank you,
Wow.
thank you.
I agree with
Dave,
that.
I want your opinion.
I
Should it be zero or less?
Well,
You got some
No,
people
I
in the
know,
speak.
but I wanna see what the board is thinking.
Board.
I think that it should be a flat penalty, whether it's 0 or 100 or 1,000,000, that having the tiered penalty is more of a problem than
Right.
having something. So if it was a flat $50 or flat $100
Right.
or a flat $0.
Well, the only problem with that is it doesn't reflect the degree with which folks went over, right? Because if someone went over 1 unit or 5 units, they get $100.
That's right.
And someone that went over
Right, you're
400.
trying to make it fair for the people.
Yeah, and I totally sympathize with the staff on this. We have one more month to get through this, and then we can zero it out, and we can see what happens after that. But we're looking retrospectively, folks, at what the expectation. There was no expectation going up to this billing that you wouldn't be receiving a penalty. There was no expectation. The expectation was you would receive a penalty. You'd fill out a protest form. Bill would somehow get it done along with Kristen, and you would get those adjusted. Up until like 4 or 5 days from now. And then if the going forward idea, I think, is a good one, because then it's fair for everyone relative to what the expectation is around water use. Otherwise, it's not fair.
Yeah, but I do think that the shock of these people, the second neighbor over just got $1,000 fine. Actually, it's 1,100. So I think they got the message, they got the drift. Next time it's gonna stick. But I think this time.
Frustrating
How do you
people
feel
like
about
that.
it?
Why do that? This is how I feel. I feel that I wanna hear from him, I wanna hear from her, and I wanna hear from her.
Okay.
Okay? I heard from you already, thank
Yeah.
you very much.
Okay.
And then I'll tell you how I feel about this. But these people wanna speak.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. I asked for this
there.
about 2 meetings ago to please rescind the Proposition 2021-8 on the penalty phase, and you guys just ignored me. I've talked to a lot of people out here lately. I know there's a lot of people that paid their water bills, but they did not pay the fine. What are you gonna do with that?
They still owe the penalty.
So they're gonna
Unless they
pay-
protest it, we reduce it.
That was on the last month's bill.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah. So they're gonna.
It might help if Bill explains how the water bills have been adjusted. Maybe the board's aware, but I know most of the community is not aware. Because I've been volunteering down here, I'm aware of how that's been calculated. I know some bills that were $1,100 were adjusted down to $660 now. You may do a better job than I can, and if you're willing to do that and just explain the process, that would probably help people understand how it's gone.
Are the people going to have, adjustments on their penalties, like they can pay them off so much a month, or, you know, will they owe the lump sum?
If they want to do a payment plan, but once, I mean, most customers are understanding, I mean, they're not happy, but at least they understand.
There's a lot of people out here that are not happy.
Well, I just,
Yeah.
so,
But there's no interest, we're not charging interest.
yeah. So
We're
if customers
stretching
want
it out.
if customers want to do a payment plan, it's something we can offer. We have offered it.
Well, I have a friend that lives over here in Tacoma. She's a widow, she's 77 years old, she does a lot of animal rescue out here, and does a lot of community work the best she can. She lives on Social Security. She can't go read her meter all the time, she's not physically able to do it. She went over one unit and got a $50 penalty. She can't afford that $50 penalty. She has so many animals to take care of now, and she works for free for Dr. Sargent for vet bills.
That's why I want Bill to explain how he's doing the adjustments.
Well, this lady had some comments.
I'm Laura Scott. We've lived out here for 32 years, and we understand that the water district needs rate increases to survive. But we're new to this issue, me and my husband. We're both on fixed incomes, and we just figured out how to read the water meter because somebody in the office explained it to us, because your internet site is not very user-friendly. We moved out here to want to garden and orchard.
Excuse me,
And animals, we bought land out here because the school district was good too at the time. Now, our garden is burned up, I turned off the water, our blueberries are dying, our strawberries are dying, everything is dying. But we still went over this month, and we only get one penalty waiver, whatever you wanna call it. We already had that last month, and we've just figured out the meter, and the way your billing cycle is, you're already 3 weeks into the billing almost when you get your bill. So last month, we were already 3 weeks into it when we decided we need to turn everything off. We're not living here the life that we wanted to live in Happy Valley because of this. And I understand the drought, that it's a temporary thing, but it's not really because of the drought in California. So waiving the penalty once isn't gonna help. This month we went over again, even though I turned everything off because we were already 3 weeks into this billing cycle. So I agree with Bill that we need to waive these penalties for this month. Look at it again next month, but the way your billing cycle is, hopefully your new meters will get your bills out sooner if you buy the new metering system, because your bills come out 3 weeks after you're already in it, which isn't very helpful to people who are trying to monitor their water. We're not even flushing our toilet unless it's brown. We're using dishwater to water my roses that I said I don't want to die because I planted a rose for every family member that is deceased. So we're using our dishwater to water our roses. That's all I have to say. I think the penalty needs to be waived this month because of your billing cycle, and not punish people because of it.
Thank you.
So, real quick, I'm requesting that the bill that's gonna go out on November 1st-ish, well, the plan will go out on November 1st. That's the bill I'm asking for the bill to be with, not the one that went out that we're doing all the protests for.
Right. Well, I'm going to make a motion and see what happens.
So
Let me make a motion, you can.
I don't even understand.
Have discussion on it.
No, I don't, but, all right, go ahead.
I was gonna make a motion, if it gives a second, that we do what Bill suggested, that we waive the penalty for that particular, period of time, and that would bring this back at the next meeting to discuss it further. That's a motion.
Since I can't second that, because I'm not sure because of this, the way this thing is so staggered, when you read it, and then it's so this last reading, 13th and 14th of October, you want to waive the penalties for that reading?
Correct. So when the bill shows up at your doorstep, November 1st-ish, it's gonna say 0 on it.
I'm not in favor of that. I'm in favor of waiving it for the next reading.
Killing
that
souls.
doesn't help them in the office.
Got a motion, any second?
Nobody's gonna
Second
pay
the
it.
motion.
You second the motion?
Nobody's gonna.
Okay, there is a second, and the second is to waive the penalty on the next, the bill that goes out on November first.
On this bill.
And, wait a minute, it's only a motion at this point, and now it has to be voted on.
Why don't you do it for 2 months, that way people like me.
I made a motion, ma'am, to waive it for this coming month.
2 months.
It's,
And
It's on
I
the agenda
added
as
to the
well.
motion to put it back on the agenda next month to revisit it.
So then can I use
Because
lots
that's
of
what
water?
he suggested. I made that motion and it was seconded. Now, you can have some discussion on that if you
What
want.
does that mean for, so so what does that mean for me right now? Does that mean I can use water?
Your meter's been read already.
No, but for this next month, I'm still in limbo. I don't know if I have a penalty or not.
You're
I'm
still
at
at
the-
29 units.
You mean for
going forward.
Yeah, so going forward, so.
From today and the days after my reading.
Well, first off, I put it on the agenda for 1 month, and I asked you for the board to consider relief moving forward, and you can
I think-
modify that.
I think
My
relief
motion-
going forward makes a lot of sense.
My motion was, excuse us please, if you please hold it down so we can
Your
finish.
chairperson has a gavel.
We finish here. My motion was to, as Bill suggested, waive the penalty for the bill going out on November first. And then to bring the issue back to this board at the November meeting to discuss it further and to determine whether or not a further waiver was necessary. And I believe you seconded it.
Right,
So,
okay. So you said yes.
well, I don't think anybody said anything yet, have we?
Okay.
I seconded, but you haven't called the vote.
Yeah, you haven't called the vote.
What do you vote?
Yes.
Aye.
Earl.
No.
No. Aye.
Motion carried.
Can we have a discussion?
All right.
Okay.
So it still leaves you in limbo on whether we can use
Right, we
water
don't know
next
what to
month
do
or
now.
we're stuck at 29
Please,
units.
please,
We don't know what to do, can we use water now?
please, please,
Please yourself,
please.
jeez. I mean, I'm feeling really good, and so now I don't know whether I can use water.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's go on.
I have another motion. I move that we waive the penalties for the next month, this month we're in, right now. As you suggested, I move that we waive the next month's meter readings penalty.
We need to be able to pull well water because we're using too much surface water.
No, we're
That's
not.
my motion.
We need to use water so we can pay.
No, this fits into Bill's need for us to use more water so things don't stagnate.
Well, yeah, if we're waiving them retrospectively, we should be waiving them going
So,
forward.
so,
Yes.
Compared to water.
so the first thing I see is this technically was on the agenda. I'm not against this, but I'm gonna make a suggestion. If the board does somehow move forward with this motion, we need to, and the word gets out that the customers can go hog wild. We need to, and there's a difference between hog wild and going bananas. The board needs to keep in mind that we could call a special meeting if I see that this is not working. We will. So,
Yeah, wow, yeah.
so that's something we need to keep in mind.
Yeah.
So I'm for it, as long as the usage, as long as customer usage or district usage goes up into the okay range.
Well,
So-
there's a motion on the floor,
Okay.
but there's no second yet.
Right, because we're in discussion.
Okay.
Okay, all right, how often can this ordinance be changed? I mean, we can change it now and change it again 2 weeks from now?
Yes.
Okay,
Because we're not amending major wording, we're just adjusting penalties to 0.
okay.
legal counsel suggested that we don't have to repost it in the paper and all that fun stuff. But if we're gonna change wording and other parts of it, then we need to.
Okay, all right, so we can adjust it to 0 if we want, if we decide that that doesn't work and you have to then adjust it back up. Does that require a notification period or anything like that?
It was specifically worded in the ordinance that the board can direct whoever is the general manager to adjust the penalties as it goes. Hence why we adjusted previously to just have it be the water rate versus the fees if we were charging fees. So you wouldn't have to do another Prop 218 to adjust what the water penalties would be. You're welcome.
The water penalties were an ordinance and weren't Prop 218, as I understand.
Actually, the drought rate was.
The drought ordinance was not subject to Prop 218.
Correct.
What?
Well, yeah, it was.
The drought rate formula was part of the Prop 218? Yes,
No, the drought ordinance addressed the penalties.
Yes, correct. You're right, the drought rate, yeah, sorry.
The rate was the Prop
Different,
218.
yeah, I'm with you. We're in violent agreement.
All right, you wanted to make, you made a motion.
I did make a motion.
We're
Would you
waiting for a
repeat
second.
it?
Okay.
Because that was.
I move that we waive next month's readings penalties.
The motion should say that we're waiving the penalties. We're setting the penalties to 0.
I move that we set the penalties to 0 for next month's water readings, which would be the
December 1st bill.
November
November 1st bill and the December 1st bill.
Yeah, there we go.
Do I hear a second?
Because it's gonna get dry in February, folks, I just tell you right now, it's gonna be.
I mean, just should this be a modification to the previous one to change it from 1 month to 2? Or do we, I mean, can we even do a second motion if there's not a?
I think the way penalty modification was on the agenda, the previous motion, and to make a new motion.
Yeah, that would be what I would think also.
So my desire is to say no to the first one, because I think it's,
And I believe that you can't rescind the motion if you voted no against it. I think someone that voted yes has to make the motion to rescind the previous.
What you have to,
You can have two, you can have two. You can make two separate ones. Same person.
Okay, stop.
Go ahead.